We're here for a new episode of Next in Line, where we bridge the gap between established tastemakers and beginners in specific industries and fields. Today we have our good friend Nick with us. He does Amazon FBA, amongst other things. And we're going to take a deep dive into the world of Amazon FBA. Now, Nick, if you will, can you give us a little history on how you started in the industry and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Right, this is pretty nice setup you guys have. Really good quality. So when I first started, it was a little bit over 2 years ago. I was tired of my job. I had asked my boss for a promotion and ended up getting denied. Then after that, I came to a realization, like, what the fuck am I doing? I have these skill sets. I know how to make money. I've done it before. So let me go ahead and start a business. And my friend at the time, he was doing Amazon FBA. He would go to the retail stores, buy the products from the stores, and just list them online on Amazon.
Okay.
So I would ask him questions throughout the time he was doing it. I came to a conclusion. It's pretty simple. He doesn't have to create a listing. He doesn't have to create a brand, upload the pictures, the keywords, none of it. No marketing, none of it. So I'm like, let me try that. Maybe I could do that and just quit my job, just do that full time. First week I did 1,200 in sales, and I would just go to Dolphin Mall here in Miami. Mm-hmm. I would go to other retail stores too, buy the products, list them on Amazon, take it to my house, do the whole prepping. And then from there, I ended up applying for different business credit cards. I got 90K in business credit cards. Mm-hmm. And I always knew about credit. I always wanted to find that business where I could just get capital and then just pour it into it and then just balls to the wall after that. Yeah.
Phenomenal. Wow, that's great. That's great that you actually took that leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
So you're already working, and a lot of times people will just they'll stay stagnant. They'll keep staring up at that ceiling as they get closer to it, and before they know it, they're pressing their nose up against the ceiling, right? And they're not looking to go beyond that. So that takes a lot of courage. We also have Dario in the building, and Dario is beginning his journey on Amazon FBA.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that that Nick is here with us, and he's willing to share the gems, on how he started and just as we progress with the episode, we're gonna try to pull some valuable information out of Nick.
It's gonna be the most valuable things you've ever heard about FBA. So you gotta listen up.
Let's do it.
Now, Nick, can you give us an idea? We'll kind of just take a deep dive here and just kind of start running. Can you give us an idea of what are some of the common pitfalls and common issues that you might encounter when beginning a journey and starting in the industry itself?
Yeah, I'd say mentality, to be honest, and then doing it by yourself, because just like anything, if you do it by yourself, the learning curve is much longer. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to have any feedback from anybody. So you're just going to keep making more mistakes and try to figure it out on your own. And a lot of people think of business pretty much of them doing it. Mm-hmm. So they don't think of delegation, being able to put systems in place where they don't have to do it forever. Because what I tell people is, like, if you don't, then you're just going to be an employee again.
Right.
An employee for that new business you started, which is worse because there's no clock in, clock out. Like, you're working 24/7, and if you stop working, you stop making money, and you make less money.
Yes.
So it's worse than a job.
Right.
So I would say that, and not be trying to be part of different communities. Just like anything, like Amazon or any industry, there's different community groups. You could learn from other people, network, pick their brain on certain things. So I would say those. And then just not building a good foundation. More specific to Amazon, there's a lot of different information on Amazon, right? You could sell audiobooks, you could start your own brand, drop ship, resell. Like, there's so many different ways. Mm-hmm. So staying more focused on the model that you want to do and building a good foundation on just that specific model will take you further than other people that don't. Because I remember when I first started, I was 3 months in, and by then I already did 100K on Amazon in sales. And I was talking to a guy who's been in the game for like 8 months. and I was telling him stuff that he didn't know about. So it just made me realize like building that strong foundation is super essential, because then later on you'll try to switch certain things that sometimes is a little hard, because then you have to rebuild. So I would say that those are like the most common ones.
Okay.
And then not knowing how much money you make, because then they see the sales, but they don't see like the profit, the losses, the returns, items that are missing because you ordered it and didn't come in. So it's things like that.
Okay. So what I heard from you was mentoring. Mentoring is very key, right?
Yeah.
Having, if you can, right? Because many times people they're gatekeeping information, right? So if you're able to have a gracious person like yourself, right?
Yeah.
For example, for Dario, Nick is sharing gems, a wealth of knowledge, and trying to kind of gear you in the right direction so that you don't suffer from the same pitfalls that he has. So I heard mentorship. I also heard niche, working within a niche, like focusing and drilling down rather than, I always think of a fire hose, right? Like a firefighter fighting a fire, right? If he's just spraying everywhere in every different direction, or if he even loses control of that fire hose, that fire is not going to go out. But if they focus on the hottest point of that fire, then they'll be able to put that fire out a lot quicker, right? So I heard from you niche, focusing on a specific a part of the industry, or a specific type of product, right? And then another really important thing that I just heard you say was counting them chickens, right? Making sure that that how much money's going in, how much money's going out. Focusing on your costs, and and that'll allow you to actually reinvest into the business to scale, right? And make sure that you're not frivolously spending your money on things that are not necessarily going to take you to the next level, right? So that's what I heard, right? And, now, as far as the products that you sell, you don't have to get so specific, because obviously this is information that you've worked really hard to gather, and things that you've
Spill the beans, please.
If you can give us an idea, like what trends do you see, current and in the pipeline for Amazon FBA?
Yeah. So I mean, before that, you were telling me the analogy of like the firefighter with the hose. That's important, because if you start thinking about like other types of ways, or other types of like things going on, like you start thinking about, okay, this is what a cop does during an arrest. Like, bro, you're trying to put out a fire. Like, focus on that. I see that all the time. Like, I really want to put focus on that, because these people, they go online and there's so much information. You search up Amazon FBA, Amazon. You could do so many things. Once you build that foundation, then you can get creative, because it's business at the end of the day. Like, the way I started my business, most people don't. Most people don't know about credit. They don't know about getting all that access to capital for 0% interest and then just putting it to work. They don't know about delegation. But once you build that foundation, then you could start like getting creative and thinking of other ways, like getting investors, getting loans, like starting a fund, like, and of getting more capital. But like, don't do it off rip.
That's the fun part, I think. The creative side of business is amazing,
The world is yours. You can do whatever.
And you can, like how we were speaking off camera earlier, you can, it's the beauty, at least for me, I think you can relate with this. The beauty of entrepreneurship for me is that you can create your own culture.
Yeah.
You're creating, your business is a living, breathing entity. And then within that entity, you can create an ecosystem, and that kind of leads me to my next question. I can already tell that you're setting yourself above the rest, because you're running a real business. It's a true business, and you look at it as a true business, whereas
it's not a side hustle.
Right, exactly.
Like,
and
I'm trying to fucking grow it, like
make it as big, scale it up to as big as you can.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, especially within that industry, they're not necessarily looking at it like a real business, right? Now my next question to you would be
the products.
Yeah.
Okay. So
how'd you know? You read his mind?
Well, yeah, he asked me. I just didn't. So when it comes to products, again, I don't have to create a listing. So there's already listings created. Some of those products, brands, they already sell 100 units a month, 1,000 units a month, 10,000 units a month, 50 units a month. So there's so many different listings. You just have to find those products on either distributors or different websites,
Okay.
and then try to find them for a cheaper price, and then resell it on those listings.
Okay.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. Now, there's different strategies around that. I use different softwares like Keepa, where you could be able to
That's
find
what I
those
wanted to get
listings.
into. That's the
Keepa?
juice right there. Keepa and Seller Amp. I actually wanted to ask you
Yeah.
about that as well. Like, let's say somebody's just starting off. Like, how do they? Is it easy to use? Is it how would somebody start? Like, just starting off retail arbitrage from scratch.
So going from scratch, the easiest ways and like the lowest risk way too, because if you buy these products from a distributor, you're probably not going to be able to return the product if anything happens, like you're restricted on the product or it moves slower than you thought. But starting off with buying it from retail stores or websites is the lowest risk way because you could return it if anything.
Okay. Yes. That's a gem.
So going into the retail stores, you just have the app called Seller Amp, and you could scan the barcodes of the different products, and then it could pull up the information of the products, like how many units it sells per month. I look at more information than that, but since you're in person, it's pretty simple. You pull out your phone, and you can see the information of also a built-in calculator, so you could see how much money you're going to make if you buy that product and you resell it at the price you want to resell it at.
Okay.
You could see competitors, so how many people are selling that product, what price they're selling at. But I mean, back in the day when I would go into retail stores, I would even bring my computer. I could see like everything. I could see the Amazon listing, big screen, like everything.
And how long would you be at these stores for?
In the beginning, hours.
Hours, okay.
So what I tell people is like you when you start off, at least this business model, you cast a wide net. So you see all these different products, brands, different locations where you could buy them from, but then you narrow down. So what I tell my students is like follow the money. You narrow down to what products, brands, locations that are giving you the most money, that are showing you good potential. So then you want to narrow down to those opportunities. So once you hit a couple stores, then you start seeing like what are the actual good stores, and then narrow down on those stores, and then you start seeing the brands that are always good.
Gotcha.
And then you could take it to the next level with those brands.
So I'd like to talk about your course, but before we delve into that, how important are trends? Like, for example, right now we have the Diddy trial, right? And and there's been a big highlight on baby oil, right? So is that important to your business? Like actually seeing the trends that are unraveling within pop culture, and then maybe you're focusing on selling specific items that that might be hot right now, or is that not necessarily a strategy that you use?
Yeah. So I'm right now I'm selling.
He's buying all the baby oil.
Right now I'm selling like in 400 different listings. So it's like, yes, that could be a strategy, but it's like the way reselling works is like you're pretty much parking your money in all these different products. So not all your products are going to be from that strategy. You want products that you could replenish, that you could buy every month, that's every day, like normal stuff like toothpaste. And then you can have those products that blow up that you could also put your money into. So it's anything that makes you money, like that strategy, yes. So because that's a strategy that makes money.
That's a great answer. Yeah, so that kind of goes back to casting that wide net, so to speak, right? Because it's kind of almost like investing in a boring business, right? People feel that it needs to be something that's hot or that's trending, but everybody needs toilet paper. Everyone. If you're as long as you're regular, you're gonna be using toilet paper every single day, right? So that's enlightening. And I'm sure people will find value in that. Now, real quick, Nick, talk to us about your course. How did you go about selling a course, even thinking about doing that, and how do you maintain that leg of your business?
Yeah, I mean, at first I didn't want to do it, to be honest.
Why so?
Because I didn't want to tell people like the products, like the model, because then I thought I would make less money, like the business was gonna like go bad. So I actually
more competition.
Yeah, I held off on it for a good time, and then also I felt like I wasn't ready to like teach people because I don't know, so my second month on Amazon I did 64K in sales, and then third month I quit my job and like I just kept scaling it up. So yes, like I scaled it up really fast, but I felt like I still needed to be in the business for like a while to teach people. So I held off on it for a little bit. But then I realized like I would pretty much spend all my capital for products as soon as I got it. then there would be times where I would like have nothing to do because I already spent the money that I had. I don't have infinite money. And then I started doing some research. It's like there's way more products than I could buy. And if I wanted to buy all the products, I would need like $8 billion. And I don't think at $8 billion point, I would want to do Amazon. I think I'll probably do something else because that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this really wouldn't affect me if I like teach a couple people how to do it. And the honest truth is like most people don't care. Like most people will try and then stop. Right. So I'm like, okay, I could teach people because it wouldn't hurt me. And then most people, it's a business. Like life gets in the way, they get busy, they get unmotivated, whatever happens. So they really won't continue. I'm like, okay, I feel like I could teach people. And also another thing that I didn't know would happen, but then later on I started realizing it. When I teach someone and they get to a point where they're making good money, I could partner with them on certain things. So in that industry, so in my warehouse, I have right now 3 students that are partnered with me in the warehouse. Like they're running their own Amazon store. Julian, Joseph, and Javier. They were all students in the community. So at one point when I wanted to go get that warehouse, I talked to Julian and Joseph. They were down. And then we expanded the space in the warehouse. And I'm like, okay, we should try to find another Amazon guy. And then we saw Javier wanted to scale it up. And this wasn't even like, yo, pay me like, extra money. You could be in there like mentoring you. It's just like, yo, you're doing good. Do you want to have your own space here in the warehouse? You pay for what you have.
I have a question. So did these guys look at it as a side hustle at the beginning, or did they have the same mindset as you? Like, yo, this is a business. This is something I want to like pursue.
Yeah, none of them thought it was a side hustle. Since the beginning, they're like, yo.
They took it serious.
Yeah, they're like, boss of all, like, let's fucking run it, like, rip it now.
So is that also the majority of your students, or like some of them, you think they don't really see the profit side of things, or is that more like, all your students are taking it serious? It's
a good mix. I would say most want to blow it up, but there are some that just want to do it as a side hustle. Like I have this one girl, Jessie. She's she's a nurse, and she just wants to like do it as a side hustle. She's making like an extra $4K a month. I tell people, if you want to do that, that's fine. You can make an extra $4K a month. Just run it while you're doing your job because you want to focus on your career or whatever. But most people, honestly, they want to blow it up, take it to the next level, which I think is cool because you could go different routes. Like if you just want to make that extra income, you can. Like as a side hustle or whatever. But if you really want to blow it up, like you can. And then there's different parts of like blowing it up. Like if you want to have your own in-house warehouse, you can. But if you don't want to have to deal with the warehouse, you could outsource that as well, where you could just be like have that laptop lifestyle and not have to like go in there, put up shelves, get the employees, payroll, insurance, like deal with any of that. You could also just get what I call is like a prep center, pretty much, where you could send out the products over there and they could ship it out to Amazon. So you don't have to deal with that. And I mean, that's honestly what I did. And that's honestly what I recommend most people because getting a warehouse is pretty fucking hard. Okay. To be honest.
Has the warehouse, has it improved your bottom line? Like has your profits increased because of the warehouse or?
Yeah.
Okay. They have. Can you kind of delve a little bit deeper into that? What are the reasons why the warehouse would generate more profit for you? I'm assuming it could be being able to hold more inventory, but if you could delve into it just to enlighten folks on that, that'll be helpful.
It wouldn't be that because there's prep centers that are way bigger than mine. Like I'm friends with one guy who owns a 50,000 square foot prep center, and that like shits on my warehouse. Okay. But it's more so that a prep center is a variable cost, so you're paying a per unit cost. Okay. So. They have different prices, but I would say it's mostly anywhere from like $1 to $1.50. And then some of them have different fees involved. Like I have my own prep center, so I'm very different from other prep centers. I have like my own platform, my own different fees. So let's say you're paying $1 or $1.50 per unit. Let's say $1. It's easy math. Okay. And let's say you ship out 3,000 units to that warehouse. You're paying $3,000 and then maybe other additional fees. So let's just say $3,200, for the other fees or whatever. If you get a warehouse and you pay $2,000 a month, you're already saving $1,200.
Makes sense.
So there has to be a volume that you have to hit for the warehouse to make sense. Okay. Now, what most people don't realize is that, when you get in the warehouse, you probably won't hit that volume till X like third month.
Right.
So
it's an investment.
you're kind of making less in the short term
Right.
to then make more, because it's not just like, oh, you go in there, oh, I shipped out 3,000 units, like I already made my money. No, like you have to get shelves, tables, computers, cameras, deposit on the warehouse, so that's money that you could have used to buy inventory. So it's like several trade-offs, like when you first get the warehouse, but it's really just a volume game, to be honest.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
And you also could have like your own in-house system. So like, again, like my prep center, I actually like the system way better than pretty much any prep center I've worked with. It's more reliable, it's more streamlined, organized. So you could have it in a way where your system is better than theirs.
Phenomenal.
So it's not just, saving money,
Right.
but then also you have a better system where it's more reliable and you could scale better too.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a gem right there, because since in the past you've dealt with prep centers, and I'm sure that you had headaches over certain processes that
Pretty
they
much got
use.
scammed with my last one.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's funny, right? Because this is another lesson that Nick is teaching us, that it might not, that lesson could end up being a blessing, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe if you didn't get scammed, you would have just continued working with prep centers, right?
That is true.
So it's never. I always tell my people, like, those L's, like, it's never a loss. It's always a lesson, right? Because sometimes if you run into an issue, a situation, a potential pitfall, that can give way to a better version of yourself, right? And you take those responsibilities in your own hands, and you decide, you know what, I'm gonna create something that is gonna save the next guy from falling victim to the same issue that I fell victim to. So, kudos for that, Nick. And I know you're profiting from it, but you're also creating a safe space for people to be able to manifest their goals, which is phenomenal. Now talk to us about profit margins. Yeah, if you can, like,
Yummy.
just and you don't have to get so specific, because we don't want to infringe on your your bread and butter there, but give us an idea of what kind of profits someone should usually expect when they're selling through Amazon FBA.
Fees, all that. Get into it, bro.
So I'd say it depends on the model. If you're doing like buying from retail stores, usually you'll get higher profits than if you're buying from websites. And then if you're buying from websites, you usually could get higher ROI than buying from distributors.
Okay. Interesting.
So, I mean, in retail stores, I've seen products that are like 70% ROI.
Wow.
So for every $100, you're getting $70 back.
Phenomenal.
And
better than drugs.
Better than drugs. Some drugs.
Some drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Good one.
But there's pros and cons to it. But since we're talking about profits, and then buying from websites, which is called online arbitrage.
Okay.
I look for at least 30% return on investment. Sometimes I find products are higher, like 50, 60%. But I mostly look for 30%. Sometimes I'll get products that are at minimum 25%, just because they sell like 3,000 units a month. So I could just go in and out like quick.
Okay.
And sometimes if you could, do it even faster, you're making even more money. Because when I buy products, I'm looking to sell those products anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Sometimes they may drag like 8 weeks, so being 2 months. But if you could find those products that you could turn over, let's say in 3 weeks, then you're able to get that money back and put it again into the same product. And then that's another 3 weeks. So you flipped it twice instead of waiting for a full flip.
Right.
If you were trying to get something like, over 30%.
Okay. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Is there a reason, maybe it's the obvious, is there a reason why those retail products are giving you a bigger ROI? Is that maybe perhaps because the scale, they're able to purchase in bulk and wholesale and then sell it for a little bit less, or kind of give us an idea if you have any insight into that.
And retail stores?
Yeah.
That's a good question. So I'd say it's mostly because, most of the retail stores are mostly outlets.
Okay, got you.
But it's a little weird, because sometimes, on websites it'll be cheaper than the retail stores.
Okay.
But it's mostly that case. I think it's mostly just because there's outlets and there's coupons that are within those stores that aren't advertised online.
Okay.
And then what you'll notice is that those stores, even though they could be like the same companies like Target, Marshalls, Ross, each store acts like its own because there's a different management involved. They have different set of rules. They have different ways that they can play around with the coupons.
Gotcha.
Sometimes you could find your way in where the manager's cool. You could talk to them, do some like bulk buying,
Right.
get some extra discounting. Some are assholes. So like, it's like each store is its own sort of entity in a way.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great because that's what I was alluding to. I was wondering, like, for example, I get my Dr. Bronner's soap, right? I get it from.
That's actually a good brand.
Oh yeah, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And then I put my own
It sells a lot.
essential oils into it. Okay, but that's my own secret. But I put a little bit of lavender, a little bit of tea tree oil,
You gotta pay him $50 for the course that will teach how to make that exact.
Yeah, to smell like me. You can't smell me. You can't smell me via audio or video, but I have my own formula. So back to being focused on this. So I was alluding to that. I was assuming that maybe you're working through outlets, and my next question would be: is there a benefit from being in a major metropolitan area like Miami and having access to certain products versus say someone in Oklahoma that's trying to do Amazon FBA and they don't have access to the mall, the super malls that we have here, like a Dolphin Mall or the big box discount retailers that we have, like a Marshalls or a TJ Maxx and many of them, or Kohl's, that you can go and you can find these products at a much better price point.
I'd say it depends because there's places that are like small, like some places in Idaho where there's way better stores.
Okay.
Like there's some stores that are not good that are good that are not in Miami.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of one. Ollie's.
Okay.
So there's no Ollie's here in Miami, but I hear in the community all the time like, oh, Ollie's is like people pull up and they spend like $10K and then leave with like $5K profit.
Wow.
And then they flip it, like pretty much already ship it out. There's no Ollie's in Miami.
Okay.
So it depends. But Miami does have a lot of locations. Miami, South Florida in general is good for wholesale, like distribution.
Okay.
There's a lot of distributors, suppliers here in the area. So you definitely have a bigger advantage when it comes to working with distributors here in Florida than like, let's say, New Hampshire.
Okay.
So yeah.
Awesome. That's good information.
I did have one question for you, Nick. So for somebody just starting out, like, what's like the buy box and stuff like that? Like, the buy box. Like, what is the buy box? How can you get a hold of the buy box? And also, there's a certain thing like verification, right? You need to have like 10, 20 products to get verified on FBA. So how does that work?
Yeah, so buy box is pretty much when you go to Amazon to buy a product and it says it's selling for $20. So that's the buy box. It's selling for $20.
Okay, but what if there's like multiple sellers?
Yeah. So the funny thing is like people don't know, but 60% of all the transactions that happen on Amazon every day is from third-party sellers. So it's not even the brand or Amazon shipping out the products. It's third-party sellers. So most of the listings there's third-party sellers that are selling on it. Like people like me, like some listings I've seen like 100 third-party sellers like selling that same exact product.
Okay.
So he's pretty much trying to see how the fuck, like there's 100 people selling it, you're number 99. How would you get that buy box? It's called repricing. So you're pretty much changing the price of your product to be competitive on those other against those other sellers. But then there's other factors involved, like if you're FBA, if you're doing FBA, which is Amazon shipping out your product on your behalf, which is like fast shipping, like 1 through 2 days shipping. Okay. You're more likely to get the buy box than if you're doing FBM, which is you shipping out the product yourself. Okay. But the thing is, what happens if you're like in hundreds of different listings? You're having to manually change the price of all your different listings. But there's repricers, which is some of them are good, some of them are really shitty. But they use AI and they're able to change the price according to your competition, how your product sells on that listing. And then you can set up that repricing AI to work on all your different listings. So throughout the day, it's changing the price for you. So you don't have to manually change the price. Because, I have 400, 500 different listings. Right. It would be impossible for me to go into each listing every day and change the price like over and over.
It'd be a full-time job with overtime.
Yeah, that already there is like, I wouldn't want to do this. Okay.
So Dario touched on that buy box. I've heard controversy, some whisperings in the air that when Amazon, and I'm ignorant to this industry, so you're teaching me a whole lot, right? So forgive me for my ignorance if I'm asking a silly question, but I hear that sometimes if Amazon sees a certain product that's selling well, they'll basically hijack that product, so to speak, right, for lack of a better term, and then they'll start selling that product direct.
Yeah.
And then that'll affect, independent, small business sellers like yourself who are selling that product. Have you heard anything about that?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Care to touch on that?
For sure. So it depends. So you have to kind of understand, how does that deal work? Like, okay, let's say you have a brand in Amazon, says, fuck these third-party sellers, like work with me, I'll buy a shit ton, we're Amazon.
Right.
But there's cons that people don't know about. So like Dario, you have your own brand.
Yeah.
Amazon would pretty much, you would have to wait 90 days for Amazon to pay you for the products. So that's number one.
Okay.
That already there, like most companies are like, nah, bro, like we're bootstrapped, like we're in the game, like we can't just wait 90 days, like you're crazy
for that money to come in.
And then also Amazon would need for you to have what's called MAP pricing, which is minimum advertised pricing.
Okay.
Where sometimes it's lower than what you could afford.
I
Like,
see.
bro, I have cost of goods sold. I can't just sell my product at $9 when it costs like $8 to make it. And then it's I would say it's mostly that. Also, it's a little hard for Amazon to do that for different brands.
Okay.
The biggest reason is variations. So they just did a deal with Nike where they're selling some of Nike's products on Amazon that third-party sellers can't sell. But the thing is, Amazon, it would be impossible for Amazon to do that for all the listings for Nike.
Okay.
So it's only doing that for specific listings that sell pretty much like the best.
Okay.
Well, some of the best listings. But you have Nike. Nike has like, I think over 2 million different listings
Sure.
on Amazon. And I'm pretty sure there's, just on Amazon.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure they have other products that aren't on Amazon that maybe Amazon would want to put on the platform. But it's just impossible. Like you look at it at a logistics standpoint, because I have my own fulfillment center, I would know this. Some of the items that Nike has doesn't even sell 10 units a month.
Wow.
So why would Amazon, buy
So
all
it's
the
not
inventory?
worth
Yeah.
it for them, yeah.
Yeah. So you have to see kind of like how the deal is structured and like the benefits of each other's side. But from a reseller standpoint, there's over 100 million different products that you could resell on Amazon.
Okay.
So if Nike goes away, there's still like a bunch of other.
Okay,
brands.
what if there's like this rare case scenario where you already have the product, you bought thousands of products, but not, maybe looking to return, you've maybe held it for 60 days, so you can't return it anymore. And Amazon hijacks that listing. What would you do in that specific scenario, which may be rare, but
So I would say it's actually very rare, because when you say Amazon hijacking the listing, you mean as in they're also selling that product,
Right,
or
they
you
start
just
selling.
cannot sell it.
They start selling the product.
correct,
right?
yeah. They start selling it, but out of nowhere, not like before you
Yeah.
because you could like look into it before, but what if they just come in? You know what I mean?
So that's the thing. You could sell products that Amazon sells on the product too. So I'm on like, I don't know, like 70 listings probably, if I'm able to estimate, where Amazon's also a seller on that listing. So I'm competing against Amazon on their own platform for the buy box.
Okay.
And then there's strategies on like winning the buy box over that. But if they come in as a third party seller, 99% of the times you're still able to sell that listing. But I mean like 99.999. But there are some rare cases with Nike where out of nowhere Amazon said, fuck this, like we are the seller on some of the listings. Okay. So that then it would be a case where you just can't sell that listing. Right. But what Amazon is doing, it's still letting you sell whatever inventory you have on that listing already.
Okay.
So it's not just like, yo, you can't sell, like
They
get
shut
your
it down.
products back. Like, it's like
And you teach that on your course, right? How to do the buy box and stuff like that.
yeah, I have like over 70 hours of content.
Okay.
That part it's a little people get confused, and that's why I tell people don't really look at everything that's out there, because it's different if you're selling audiobooks than you're fucking reselling the brand. But in the case, let's say, okay, Amazon kicked you off, you can't sell that listing, whatever. What I do is I liquidate on other platforms, so I could use like eBay, Walmart. I could do Facebook Marketplace, and then there's also liquidators that you could search up that could buy out your inventory. I'm also partnered with a liquidator that will buy the excess inventory that I have or that I don't want. He could be able to sell it for me and then give me a percentage of profits. And then I just found another liquidator that I didn't even know it was the thing, that could buy out your expired food.
Oh,
Because
wow.
that would be the biggest con when it comes to selling groceries. Your food could get expired.
Sure.
So they have this model where they could reship it and to like South America, like other countries.
Yeah.
Which I didn't even know was a thing. So like I'm pretty much covered. Like either way, I'll be able to liquidate it. My biggest thing is like I'd much rather take an L, like lose a couple dollars, because you're not really gonna like lose like a ton of money. Like when you're reselling these products, either you'll break even or you lose a couple dollars on per unit.
Right.
But my biggest thing is being able to get the money back, so then I could reinvest it on good products.
Makes sense.
So I'd much rather just lose a couple dollars and reinvest it than sit on the inventory, because that's money that's not moving.
Gotcha.
And in this business, you want to keep it moving over and over and over every day.
Absolutely. You got to keep it flowing. Yeah, most definitely. Nick, talk to me about IP complaints and brand gating, if you can.
So there's different types of IP complaints, which is violations. So like what happened to me is like the brand will reach out like, yo, you're selling our product. But then there's different steps there. You have to see if it's the brand directly or if it's a third party lawyer company. A lot of people get scared of those third party lawyer companies, but it's complete bullshit. I've had the same third party lawyer company reach out to me since I first started.
Wow.
Which was like 2 years ago.
Multiple products.
They're not doing shit. They're not going to do anything.
Right. They're just trying to scare you. It's like a demand letter, for example.
But most people do get scared. And that's where they lose money. Because then they'll take down the listing. They'll be like, damn, I have all these products. Which I've actually met some that they get scared and they take down the listing and then they hold the inventory and try to do something about it, like resell it somewhere else. They lose money because then you have to ship it back out to them, like all this other stuff. But those you can honestly, like most of the times, ignore. Obviously, first talk to people about it, because that's your account you're talking about. Your account health, getting deactivated, suspended. And then the other ways are like customers complaining like, oh, the product I bought is fake. Okay. Or like it's expired. There's different types of violations. But honestly, most of the times if you provide the proper documentation, which is what I always tell like my students, or like I talk to anybody about Amazon, if you buy from a place that's actually legit, that has proper documentation, you should never be worried.
Like a retailer, for example.
Yeah, because if you're buying from like a closeout or like a sketchy Chinese corner store that's just like, yo, we got this for the low and it's fake Dove, like, then you're pretty much risking it. You know what you're doing, because Amazon, that's the first thing they talk about. It's like, we want to make sure that you're selling legit stuff, which I wouldn't honestly blame them. Like I know. So one thing that happened is Nike socks. So in Turkey, they were manufacturing these fake Nike socks and selling thousands of units per month. And then Amazon would shut down their account, and they would still like reopen it using AI and then sell even more of thousands of fake Nike socks. Yeah. And when it comes to counterfeit products, it's actually a really big thing on Amazon. Like there's a lot of counterfeit products. Yeah. And they mostly come from like China or Turkey, or there's other places too. Yeah. I don't just talk about shit about Turkey.
No, I'm actually feeling attacked, Nick, because these Nike socks that I have on right now, I bought them in Turkey last summer. So maybe they're fake.
Maybe. It costs them $1 to make.
Yeah, maybe that N is actually an M. So what I got from this is when you guys are buying your Dove soap to resell it, make sure that that's a dove on that bar and not a pigeon.
Yeah. Some real stuff. Don't buy fake shit.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because you might think, and really, in all honesty, you might think that you're getting a deal on the front end, or you're jugging, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're trying to run a legitimate business, it's going to come back and bite you eventually, and it's going to cost you a lot more. Maybe not necessarily in dollars and cents, but it'll cost you in frequency, right? Because like you said before, you want to keep moving and you want to keep selling, and that's how you keep growing the business, right? Yeah. So that's a gem right there. That's a gem that people need to take heed of, because it seems to me that in this industry, you can't really cut corners. Maybe you can, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you want to try to do things right if you want to run a legitimate long-term business here.
Yeah, and yes, I mean, for anyone who's like knows about Amazon sellers or people in the industry, like they end up doing it. Most of the times that it actually works because they're just reselling.
Okay.
You know,
Like
even though
cutting
it can
corners?
take like years. No, not cutting. So that's what I want to talk about. So cutting corners, yes, you can do it.
Okay.
Like, but what happens there is like that energy of like what you did is wrong is gonna come back to you, not just because like like I know I could talk about like the spiritual stuff,
Yeah.
like karma, but not even just karma. Like later on, people will know that you're bullshitting.
Right.
Like they're gonna ask you questions, be like, "Yo, how you do this? How do you do that?" And they know that you're selling a lot.
Integrity.
And then they start like you start explaining your reasoning, and it doesn't make sense to them. It doesn't even make sense to you, so you don't even know what you're explaining.
Yeah.
And then they start realizing like, "Yo, this guy's a phony. Like, there's something wrong with his business. Like, it's not making sense." Because people are smart, and then nowadays you see all these coaches, gurus, where they talk about like these different ways of making money, and you could honestly tell like when you start like investigating, researching, like how is it that this guy makes money, you can start telling like this guy doesn't really know what the fuck he's talking about. He's just trying to collect the check.
Right.
So,
Which ones? So we
Uh,
know which courses not to buy.
So I don't want to say his name, but there's or their
Air
names
them out.
actually. There's just some that like. So I know I talked about like ROI. So we could talk about margins. So you guys could like paint the picture.
Yeah.
So like from sales, at least in my model, I'm anywhere from like 20 to 25% profit margin.
Okay.
So you see someone like, oh, I just sold 30,000 in a month. It's like look at like how much money they actually made from that.
Right.
So then you have people like, oh, I just made 1,000 a month. I mean 1,000 a day in sales, but that's just my model. Like there's models out there. Like you could sell 10,000 in one day and not make any like lose money on that day because you're just liquidating.
Right.
So there's a lot of them that are flexing these sales and just like they don't really know how to do it.
Right.
They're just selling like the whole system of how to do it, but they don't like they never reach that 7-figure status.
But they're not
on that business.
pocketing anything. They're just like selling basically.
Yeah.
So they're not profiting much.
Yeah. But also you have to reach a level of on Amazon to like fully understand like how this shit actually works. So when you see like all-time sales, how their business is structured, what do they use, what models are they doing, then you'll like understand like, okay, this guy doesn't really know much. And then there's people that aren't good at marketing that are very low key that have insane sales.
Okay.
So it's just being conscious of like who you're like listening to and like doing the proper research pretty much.
Super interesting. I feel like we're getting close to running out of time here. I feel like we need to do a part 2 because these are a lot of gems. These are a lot of gems that you're sharing with us. Can you talk to us about Amazon fees, Nick?
Yeah, sure. So there's referral fees involved. They collect anywhere from 15 to 20%, depending on the brand, the product, dimensions. And then there's inbound shipping. So that's how much. That's for FBA. So when you're doing FBA, you're pretty much buying these products from wherever, like retail stores, websites, distributors. You have to prepare it. So you have to prep it, repackage it, and then ship it out to Amazon's fulfillment center. Okay. So what happens there is Amazon receives those packages, puts it on the shelves, and then every time you get an order of that product that you sent out, Amazon will ship it out for you.
Okay.
So that's the FBA model. So when it comes to that repackaging and shipping out to Amazon, there's the fee that's called inbound shipping. So that's how much it costs for you to ship it out, which is not really a fee. It's just how much it costs to ship it out to Amazon's fulfillment center. So that depends on how you ship it out too. So it ranges from like anywhere, let's say like 30 cents to like $1.50 per pound to ship it out to Amazon. So there's that fee. And then there's the shipping fee to the customer, which is part of that percentage as well. But I use SellerAmp, and SellerAmp, I'm able to see like a really good estimate of all my fees. So I'm able to see how much money I would make after all the fees. Okay. Which is that minimum that I was talking about, at least 30% ROI after the fees.
Okay. Yeah, and that's interesting. You mentioned SellerAmp because it seems like that's a very valuable tool. To be successful in FBA, huh? So.
Yeah. For the model I do, because people talk about like helium-10 and all these other stuff. That's why I say like try to be specific on like what you're doing and don't be distracted by because you could do like software overload. There's like 30 different Amazon softwares you could get. You could get all of them.
How many different models are there? Just like a number.
Yeah.
Like FBA.
It's a lot. I mean, you could do like a lot of shit. Like you could even not even sell. You could just promote the products, affiliate marketing. It's probably like 12 different things.
Wow.
That you could do, and then each one has like their own like different way of doing it.
So there's a lot of ways to be successful in the industry, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what would, in your experience, what do you feel is the most successful model? If we can drill down and say there's one most successful model.
Yeah. I would say, depends how you define success. Okay. For me, it would be the one that's consistently actually achieved. And for me, it would be the reselling model.
Okay.
Because, and that doesn't mean it's the best one. That doesn't mean it's the one that makes the most money. But I've gone to different seller conferences. Like I was just one in in Miami just now. It's called Miami Sellers Conference. Mm-hmm. Everyone that I met in that conference that I had met the prior year leveled up.
Wow.
Like insanely.
That's awesome.
Like I met some guys that just last year were doing like $80K a month. Shout out to my boy Matt, who told me like he's gonna do $500K like last month.
Wow.
Which I think he ended at 480. So I'm like, everyone there leveled up because it's so simple. It's just you're just buying products, reselling, finding different ways of getting those products, getting your in-house system going or whatever. So for me, reselling, to be honest, because everyone, if you just like literally stay consistent with it, it's bound to happen because you're not needing to use your creativity that much. You don't need to create these brands, drive marketing. You don't need to do anything. You just find those products for cheaper and resell it.
That's awesome.
For me, after that, I would say private label because private label is getting a little easier now. You know, you have different marketplaces that could drive attention to your Amazon listings. Like if you post it on TikTok Shop, Walmart, even Facebook ads on it, put it on Facebook, it drives attention to your Amazon listing, which increases SEO power. Okay. And then the whole influencer marketing of it can also help your listing as well. So for me, after that, I would say private label.
Okay, got you. And let me ask you a question. Like, as far as scalability is concerned, so you talked about getting business loans and things of that nature. Where do investors fall into this? Like, say for example, you have someone who's interested in investing in your business. How do, if you've ever welcomed that type of capital injection into your business, where does that fit? Is that a thing? And how does that look?
Yeah, so I would say getting an investor should be the last line of capital you want to use in an Amazon store. The reason that is because obviously there's other things that you could do in the process that are 0% interest, like credit cards. Okay. Or not even lower interest. But you also want to have a really solid system set up because then you're dealing with someone's money. Like that's not just like you putting your name on the line with a lender who already has millions of dollars to give out or billions sometimes. That's you with another person. That's like, and then reputation matters as well. Yeah. So I would say is the last thing also because you want to have a very good system because you're going to have meetings with that person and you only have one shot most of the times. Right. Obviously there's follow-ups, but if you come at them with, I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing. I just started and I hope it makes money. Right. There could be a chance if you're talking about like, building the next Uber, but you're not. You're talking about reselling. Right. So they want to see some sort of like credibility that you've already done it to then be able to close that person or have that person as an investor and make money together. Absolutely. But what was your question? Like, how would an investor help you? Like, let's say you're already ready for one. Right. Exactly. Okay. So the way I'm doing it, and I'm doing it with 3 people. Again, after you have the system, just want to say that again because I don't want to have these people just go out and get investors. Sure. There's 2 different ways. You could have that person. Well, never mind. So it would be only one way because I help people get the capital. So most people don't even know how to do that. So let's say that person already has the capital. You could do a profit split with them, and then you have to see how you could be able to. Make sure that the capital that you're buying using their capital is tied to their capital. Okay. So the way I do that is is by putting my
just last thing.
Okay. Wrap it up now. It's just putting their initials on the SKUs of the product. Okay. So like let's say DC, right? Dario. Yeah. Let's say. So let's say it's D.C. That was the initials. I would put that on the SKU. So then you could run a report of the profit, the losses, of how much money all the products tied to his capital made. And then you just do a profit split with them. And that's honestly up to you. You can do, depending on how much capital the person's getting, but then you would be pretty much be able to give them the percentage of the profits and then just keep it going. If you want them to reinvest, if you want to do a long-term play with them, if they just want to park it there because it makes way more money than a savings account, It depends on like what they're looking for.
Okay, awesome, great information. Thank you very much for that. And Nick, just before we wrap, can you plug your socials, your course, anything that you want the people to know?
Yeah, so you can get me on Instagram, nick.guerrero_. And as far as like, oh yeah,
I'll put that.
and as far as like my Amazon community, AmazonSuccessNetwork.com.
Okay, AmazonSuccessNetwork.com. Very good. Well,
That's
it's
right.
another episode of Next in Line. We had the amazing Nick Guerrero. He was just blessing us with gems. We have a gold mine worth of gems.
This definitely needs a part 2, bro. You're
yeah,
right.
we definitely gonna have to do a part 2. Because we just really scratched the surface, and Nick has been very gracious with his information and